everybody. Thank you all for coming out here. My name is Erica. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the events associate here at Books Are Magic. Before we get started, I did just want to go over some housekeeping points for tonight. First off, we do kindly ask that you keep your mask on at all times while at this event. Towards the end of the event, we'll be doing an audience hand-raised Q&A, so please start thinking of some questions to ask now and raise your hand when the time comes. After the talk tonight, Rosemary and Nichole will be signing and personalizing books at the desk near the side door where you can exit. We also have additional books available to purchase from my colleague Christina, whom you met at our side entrance. If you're joining us virtually on the YouTube live stream, we highly encourage you to buy a copy of Sex and the Single Woman online using the link in the live stream description. Tonight, it is my privilege to introduce Rosemary Donahue, Nichole Perkins, and Denne and Michele Norris, who are here to discuss Rosemary and Nichole's contributions to Sex and the Single Woman. Reimagining what was Helen Gurley Brown's contributions to views on womanness, relationships, and sexuality, the writers featured in Sex and the Single Woman bring nuance and further the complexities of Brown's hot takes. The essays in this collection are transparent, helping me gain deeper insight into my own perspective. Oftentimes, reading this collection felt like the warmest hug from like-minded people who are also searching for pockets of joy, community, and conversations that don't shy from the disparate. Rosemary Donahue is a freelance writer and editor living in Brooklyn, New York. They previously worked as wellness editor at Allure and have written for such publications as Vogue, Autostraddle, Them, Nylon, and Marie Claire. Nichole Perkins is a writer and podcast host from Nashville, Tennessee. She hosts This Is Good For You, a podcast about finding pleasure in life, and previously was a co-host of Thirst Aid Kit, a podcast about pop culture and desire. Nichole is also the author of Lilith But Dark, a poetry collection, and Sometimes I Trip on How Happy We Could Be, a memoir. Denne Michele Norris is a Black trans writer living in New York City. She is the editor-in-chief of Electric Literature, and her writing has been supported by MacDowell, Tin House, VCCA, the Kimbilio Center for African American Fiction, and appears in McSweeney's, American Short Fiction, and Zora. She co-hosts the critically acclaimed podcast Food for Thought, and is hard at work on her debut novel. So, without further delay, everyone please give a very warm welcome to Rosemary, Nichole, and Denne Michele.
Yay, we're here. Y'all, it's Friday. It's been a week since we learned that the Supreme Court hates all of us, but we're still here. And we're out, and we're gonna have a good time. So we're gonna start tonight's event with a little game. I've pulled this game from Food for Thought, and it's called Swipe Right, Swipe Left. You're familiar if you've ever been on Tinder. And I'm gonna read an item, and you two are gonna either swipe right or swipe left, and then I am gonna ask the audience, and I wanna know from y'all if you swipe right or swipe left as well, okay? Everyone, yeah, it's gonna be a good time. All right, swipe right, swipe left. Men.
In general, left for me.
I'm gonna swipe right. Yeah,
It's fair.
Yeah, that's very fair, but it's not the easiest decision, right?
no.
It's
I
I see a little.
think about it. It depends on a lot.
It depends on a lot.
Yeah, like one out of 10
Yeah,
isn't right for
yeah.
me. Maybe not even that.
Yeah. I also feel. I think I have to swipe right. Audience, swipe right on men. Left. I like that. Y'all are pretty uniform.
Wow.
That's awesome. All right.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride. All right. The musical artist, Hozier.
Right.
Right.
Like I would break my thumb right.
That's right. 1 out of 10.
That's the one. Do y'all know? So this is referencing a moment in Nichole's essay, but I didn't know this until I Googled him today. That man is 6'6", y'all.
Yes.
6'6".
Yes.
I'm swiping all the way right. So far right that it goes all the way back around to left, perhaps.
You have to look at his videos where he's playing guitar and just like his fingers are so balletic. They're just.
Now see, we stand a talented finger.
Yeah.
I feel like you have one of these open on your phone and you're browsing all the time.
I have a little folder on my phone of Hozier pictures and GIFs and videos. Yes.
He could be the background on your phone. No one would be mad at that.
I almost made him the background once, but I was like, I can't be that person right now.
You're like, not right now.
No.
One day it could happen. We could get there.
I hope so.
All right. Swipe right, swipe left. I feel like this should be an easy one. Pandemic pets. Getting a pet in the pandemic.
Right, because that's what I did. I got a cat. So lockdown happened March 2020, and I got a cat April 2020.
Yeah.
I love her.
What's her name?
Calliope. Yeah, like the Greek muse.
I love that. Did you get a pandemic pet?
No, I didn't. I've had my dog for a really long time,
Okay.
for about 8 years. I would say swipe right with the caveat that some people got pandemic pets and weren't prepared for it when return to work happened, and then tried to return those pets, and I swipe left on that.
Yeah. That's like pretty terrible. Like you made the commitment.
Yeah.
My roommate and I got the pandemic pet, but it was just a few months ago. He's a little, very cute Scottish Terrier, and his name is Mr. Sheffield. Because he looks like Mr. Sheffield. And I have been debating for months buying him a Tiffany collar, which I know is ridiculous. And he's really my roommate's dog, and my roommate has forbidden me, but it is like in the cart. It's in the cart. So we'll see. Maybe I'll just say, oh, a fan sent it. It wasn't me. I've tweeted about this, so it theoretically could happen. All right. Swipe right, swipe left. Being kicked out after sex.
It depends.
Yeah.
If he pays for like the Uber, then I'm fine with that.
Right.
But if he's just an asshole, then no, swipe left. But okay, I kick people out after sex, so I
Can't get mad at it.
yeah, I can't get mad.
So the very next one on the list is kicking someone out after sex for that very reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Swipe right. I don't like men to spend the night with me unless like I'm halfway in love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you don't pay for their Uber, I hope.
Oh no.
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 Mm-mm.
But I want the Uber paid for.
I expect it. I'm not going home with you unless I know that you're paying for that Uber. In fact, pre-order it. Let's go ahead and pre-order it.
Yes.
Uber Black,
Yes.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want it spoiled
Yes.
because the peen was probably mediocre in the first place. So like make up for it.
At best. Rosemary, what about you?
I think, yeah, I mean, I guess if I usually want to leave, and I usually want the person to leave, so I can't fault them for kicking me out. But because I want to leave, I'm already out the door anyway, so there's not really time for them to kick me out.
Now, see, that is how I like to play the game.
Yeah, I'm gone before you can,
Before you can say it. It's like, all right, bye.
Yeah,
The recovery is quick with you. Nothing wrong with
bounce
that.
back.
Swipe right, swipe left. This for me was a new term, but I like it and I think I might adopt it. So swipe right, swipe left. The hit it and quit it lifestyle. Or you could call it a hoe phase.
Okay. I'm gonna swipe right because I feel like I had that phase, and I also feel like if you're comfortable with it, you should have it. You should experience that moment in your life.
Yeah.
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 Audience?
Swipe right.
Yeah. This is a sex positive group.
Yeah.
We like it that way. I'm also swiping right, but I feel like you get to a point sometimes where you're like, I'm ready to swipe left on that phase. I haven't reached that point yet, but I hear that it exists. I've been told. All right, I'm just gonna do 2 more. Swipe right, swipe left. Couples therapy.
Right.
I guess right in theory. I've never done it, and I have never just from anecdotes. I have never heard anyone say it actually worked for them. Like they went through the motions and they tried, but it still just was like by that point it was too late.
Yeah.
So in theory, yes, but I feel like and again, this is as a person who has never done it, I feel like when you're trying it, you're just like, this is the last resort, so no one can say I didn't try. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then I think it depends what you mean by worked, because
Yeah.
did it help them figure out what wasn't working and then they got out of the relationship?
Okay,
You know what
that's
I
a
mean?
good way of looking at
'Cause
it. Yeah.
Personally, and this is in my essay, I said that I figured out and then said that I needed a divorce in a therapy session. And I mean, I would have gotten it might have been tomorrow, but I would have figured it out eventually.
Yeah.
But I think that therapy, whether it helps you stay in your relationship and maybe say things in a more constructive way, or helps you figure out it's not the right relationship, I think it can be helpful. And I mean, therapists are humans and they are sometimes terrible people, and you need to find the right one. But I think it can be helpful.
So it might be like, don't use it as a last resort. Like
Yeah.
maybe it's too far gone. But also going into it with the objective of being like, this is so we can stay together versus so we can figure out what our next steps are. Like that's
Yeah.
two very different mentalities.
Yeah, so that's how I always assumed it was. Like, we're going into this so that we can stay together, but now you are changing my mind and making me think couples therapy is the way to figure out the next steps for you both as a couple and individually.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just therapy. It's just you're doing it with another person to figure out what's right for you together, I think.
Okay.
I did it with my best friend a few years ago because we were having some problems, and it really did help us. We actually did stay together. We're still best friends. She lives across the country. But it helped us figure out what our communication issues were and understand the ways in which we'd grown differently and how to get back to each other. I almost feel like in that sense it's more successful in a platonic situation than like some romantic ones.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know, the call your girlfriend people,
Yeah.
they talked about that, and I was like, I've never heard of couples therapy for friends.
Yeah.
That's really intriguing.
Yeah. Fun fact, Gina Delvac, who produces that podcast, is a good friend of mine from college. She's fantastic. Hi, Gina.
Connections.
Okay, last one. Whirlwind romances. Swipe right, swipe left.
Throw your phone.
I'm gonna swipe right because I don't think I've ever really had one, and I would like to experience that. I'm a romantic. I love romance novels. I love like the idea of meeting someone on vacation and then like you're together for 2 strong months. I don't know, but like I would like to experience that.
I appreciate that. Swipe right for you.
I mean, yeah.
No pressure.
You still gotta swipe right, but it can be. I get not obsessive about people, but like I just get kind of caught up in things, and I mean that's the whole thing.
That's the whole
And
thing.
I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Yeah. It's hard because you're real high off of that romance. I don't know if it's endorphins or what, but serotonin.
Yeah.
Ooh, child. I had one a few years ago. It was just 4 days at a conference. And I loved it. And also, because of it, I didn't pay for a meal the entire 4 days I was there, which is great because I was broke.
Yes.
It was great. I swipe right on whirlwind romances and having my meals paid for. I swipe left on him
Yeah.
to this day. So it ended badly, but it was fun. Audience, swipe right, swipe left. Whirlwind romance. Yeah, it's worthwhile. Awesome. Well, you guys, thank you for playing that game with me.
Thank you.
I had a good time. So now we're gonna have readings from Rosemary and Nichole. And so I don't know which one of you wants to go first, but one will read and then the other. And it'll be really awesome.
Cool. Thank you. Sure. I don't know how I'm gonna hold this. Okay, so we're just gonna read like sections of our pieces. And I'm reading in the middle. So, Thanksgiving 2019. It was going to be my first time seeing everyone since the divorce had gone through it in May, though my brother, a trusted buffer for all things familial, was staying behind in California with his girlfriend. While my parents and extended family lean more progressive than not, I've been feeling more protective of myself since I came out. Strangely enough, it seemed Dane was too. "I'll go with you if you want," he texted me as I sat on the floor of my apartment, petting Milo, our dog, and staring off into the distance. After a minute or so, I typed out a response. "Thank you, that's so sweet. Ultimately, I think it would confuse them all even more. I'll just skip it this year." If you told me back in, say, April of that year that Dane and I would be talking at all, let alone that he would be offering to make the annual family trip to Jersey with me, I might have burst out laughing. I knew it was unusual to be so close again after any breakup, let alone a divorce. Then again, it was never our style to follow typical timelines. So even though I decided to forgo the big gathering, Dane and I still spent Thanksgiving together. We holed up with some terrible TV, ordered Chinese food, and watched our dogs, which we still share, play together in my tiny living room. He posted a photo of us on Twitter, joking, "Almost a year since Rosa Donna broke up with me, #thankful." While I try to be discerning about the information I share online, I do tend to talk about parts of my personal life, whether experiences with sexual assault or mental health or relationships, in that space. Over the years, I've had many people say, both in public replies and private DMs, that my words have helped them. As Dane and I found our way back to friendship and reinvented what our post-divorce relationship might look like, we began to share our process online and found that many others our age were going through similar transitions. Our tiny 280-character stories would be retweeted with phrases like divorce goals. And though internet speak can make me cringe when applied to deeper matters, it was heartening to see our experience resonate with others. There were people in our DMs who were getting divorced and wanted to stay friends with their exes, but weren't sure how to navigate the process. Others had been repressing parts of themselves for years and wanted to feel less alone as they disclosed those truths. Others still were dealing with the heartbreak of suddenly being left. Though the most common narrative attached to divorce is the tired story of a broken home, many people are looking for a blueprint that proves something better can be built in the aftermath. Then again, we were also accused of desecrating the sanctity of marriage, but isn't it a little trolling a sign that you're doing something right? Often, marriage is presented not as just a revered institution, but as a worthy pursuit, a goal. So to choose divorce is to choose failure. To call it quits is to eschew the traditional family structures we've been told uphold society. In many ways, it's seen as selfish to get divorced, and most of us have learned that selfishness is ugly, a major transgression. I firmly believe that for the most part, people don't opt out of a marriage unless they need to, and almost all divorces, even the most painful, for one party or both, are necessary and good. After all, even if someone else makes the choice for you, isn't it the right decision in the end if it leaves you open to a love that's reciprocal?
The COVID-19 pandemic didn't help matters. I live alone with my cat, Calliope, who I adopted in the middle of lockdown blues. Before all of this, my professional life was finally matching my dreams. I had multiple book contracts and was collaborating on an amazing podcast about pop culture and desire. Being a freelance writer wasn't exactly the stress-free six-figure career mama prayed I'd have, but I was finally doing what I loved. I had a great apartment in Brooklyn after years of subleases and couch surfing. I was in therapy and finally getting treatment for the major clinical depression that had been with me untreated since I was a child. Still, there's only so much companionship a cat can provide. By midsummer, I took a chance on a couple of guys with strict pandemic protocols and went on some dates. We met at bars that served drinks outside, always within walking distance from my place. And if he passed a vibe check, we strolled back to my building, him nervous I might change my mind, me hoping he gave good head. I rarely let anyone spend the night, and after each hookup left my apartment, I felt empty. It's true that when I decided to date again, I wasn't looking for anything more meaningful. None of these men were my type or even all that interesting, but my body has needs. Still, after I peed and washed up, always pee before and after sex, folks, I'd get in bed, feel the weight of my cat on my feet, and wish I had someone I actually wanted to share a life with curling up behind me. I want to fuck someone I actually like, maybe even make love. I hate how difficult that is to find. Sometimes these wants feel like a betrayal of all the hard work I've done to become myself, like I'm abandoning my strong, self-reliant core. After all, loneliness is too close to neediness, and everybody knows there are few things worse than a needy woman. I can say, I want some dick, and everyone will laugh their own, been there, done that laugh. When I share that sentiment online, I even get a few texts or DMs, yet as soon as I say, I want to be loved genuinely and tenderly, the silence thrown back at me is an echoing mockery. Their pity calls to mind that ridiculous question, can women have it all? Am I not allowed to have a man if I have a successful career? People manage jobs, relationships, children, and so much more all the time. I want to share the highs and lows of my professional life with someone. I want to be heard, supported, and encouraged as needed. In what world is that asking for too much? And how does wanting someone on my team mean I'm no longer my own person? I know how to take care of myself, but I don't need to be alone forever. If the heavens open up tomorrow and my perfect man falls into my lap, hey, Hosier, honey, I wouldn't attach myself to him like a leech and void my brain of any thought of my own, nor would I need him to help me bathe, but it would certainly be more fun. Having a partner doesn't mean I would become an oppressed, helpless damsel succumbing to the patriarchy because I can't survive on my own. It would simply mean that I found someone I can have a drink with who orders me a whiskey neat on the first date without thinking it's a proposal. Maybe even someone worthy of sharing my life. And so, I'm working on letting go of the strange shame I feel for admitting that I, bold, independent feminist, want a good man as a partner. When I confess these feelings to my girlfriends, I have to force myself not to whisper, but they encourage me, tell me to write down my wants, to speak them out loud, to light candles. I know there is no magic key. I can take care of myself, and I'm proud of that. I've learned and unlearned myself. I've broken the cycle of falling for emotionally abusive men who preyed on my fear of loneliness. It's okay to be alone. I just no longer want to be. I will always be my mother's child. Yes, a man is nice, but I am even nicer. I will write down my desires and speak them out loud. I will light my candles, and I will wait for the love I know I deserve.
I love how much affirmation there is for both of you and where you're at in your journeys in these essays. And that's just one of my favorite things about it, and I'll say that there's a lot of that throughout this book if you haven't read it yet, so just keep that in mind. But I want to start with a question about society and expectations and pressure, because one of the things that I felt like was really hanging over my head as I read both of your essays was the things that, the expectations that were imposed on you by the sort of adults in your life or the elders in your life and society at large. And Nichole, like you come at pressure with in different ways. Like Nichole, you know, in your essay, there's a lot about, you know, being a feminist and the pressure to be independent and to not need a man, and how, and that gets translated sometimes into shame about wanting a man at a certain point. And Rosemary, for you, your essay has a lot to do with the pressures of marriage, the expectation of getting married, and then the pressure to remain married. Because in our society, we think of marriage as like ending up. Like how often do we say, I want to end up with this, I want to end up with that. And so I guess I just wanted to ask the question of how these pressures shaped you sort of earlier in your lives and how they shape you as you move forward now. Like, what did you feel like they made you sort of want early on, and how has that changed as you've experienced all of this?
Excuse me. So for a long time, in my early dating life, I found myself staying in relationships that I knew were not good for me, just to say that I was in a relationship. I'm from the South. I am Generation X. And one of the quickest, easiest insults to throw at another woman was, at least I got a man, right? And so you did not want to be in a position where someone could like lob that at you, right? That was like the worst thing in the world. So there was a lot of pressure for that. And one of the relationships that quite frankly broke me, I was approaching 30, and he and I had been together for like 2 years, and I was miserable. Once I got out of that and had some distance, I realized that he was very emotionally abusive. But I was trying my best to make it work, because that's what people were telling me. That's just how men are. You just gotta stick with it. You just, all this kind of stuff. And the people that I worked with, the friends that I was working with, they were just very much like, oh girl, that ain't nothing. You just gotta deal with it. It's like, no, I don't want it. I feel awful. I feel terrible. Like, this is not what it's supposed to be, And you're like, you just read too many of those romance novels. It's like, okay, but I would really prefer if my man did not take the keys to my car and leave to go fuck somebody else. Is that okay?
Is that too much to ask?
So a lot of that pressure kept me in situations that were harmful to me. And I was just told that I had to like deal with it. And then when I stopped dealing with it and it broke me apart and I had to put myself together, it really helped me just kind of figure out, no, that's not right. It should not be this painful to be with someone that you love in any shape or form. This is just not it. So now I'm able to deal with the pressure a little better. And I'm just like, there's this like meme, one of those little like Instagram graphics or whatever. And I think it's actually based on a quote from somebody. But it's like, you have to really prove that you're worth, like me giving up my peace for, you have to be like, you have to enhance my peace or something like that. Like, I can't remember it now off the top of my head. But that's how I feel now. Like, you have to be someone really good in order for me to let you spend the night, in order for me to like even think of offering you food. Like, I don't even like, no, maybe I'll give somebody some water, but like, no.
Sweden.
Yeah, right? But I'm just like, because part of that pressure, not only from like the women in my life and society, but also from the men that I was dating or around, that just very much felt entitled to a lot from me without giving anything. Just like, they show up and they think that I'm supposed to just, I don't know, give them my bank account or something. I don't know, but like, no. So I'm just very much at a point now where all of that pressure, I can like leave it behind, because I know that succumbing to it is not worth the way my peace, the way like my joy feels when I am alone. Like, you really have to make being a part of my life feel good for me to like welcome you fully.
Ooh. That was a sermon. We needed that. What about you?
Yeah, for me, it's interesting because I know a lot of people grew up feeling not just pressure to get married, but wanting to get married and envisioning their like wedding day and all these things. And I didn't have either of those things. For me, it was more this kind of general societal, like, be with a person. And I know I was lucky to not have that, where my parents didn't ever they didn't, impose upon me, you have to find a person, you have to have kids, that kind of thing. It was just more this general, eventually you're going to end up with a person. And then I also had this some trauma that happened to me that created some internalized homophobia, where I kind of always knew I was queer, but that wasn't for me. I wasn't allowed to do that. And so it was like, okay, I'm going to have to end up with a person and that person has to be a man, I have to be straight. Like, I can't do this other thing. And so when I met my ex-husband, it was like, he's the best one that I can find. He's the safest spot for me to land. And so when we found each other, I mean, I did and I do love him as a person. Like, we're very, very good friends now. And I just felt this pressure of like, this is the best it's gonna get. That's not what I didn't internalize it that way at the time, but it was just like this is it for me. And then because of the way our relationship was, and then, I mean, I met him when I was living in California and he was here, and then I moved to New York and I made all these queer friends, and I was able to come out in our relationship, and there was space in our relationship. And when I came out, he actually was like, okay, maybe we find a queer couples therapist. Like, he helped me kind of figure out that I, and we still got married and it was the whole thing, but he helped me kind of figure out that, like, oh, I don't have to keep doing this thing that I felt like I had to do. I don't know. Yeah, so it was a lot of pressure that I kind of took from the outside that wasn't necessarily being directed directly at me, but I grabbed at it and, like, really took it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to kind of internalize those things even when you don't necessarily have specific people telling you that. I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Like, I was thinking a lot about one of my iconic people in the world, Tracy Ellis Ross, who is like one of my great heroes. And my first exposure to her was the show Girlfriends, which started when I was in high school. And, her entire character in so many ways is based on trying to find a man with such intensity. And that was like really formative for me. And that was like a really formative time. So it's just, I mean, it's all everywhere. But I think that's really interesting because Tracy Ellis Ross is famously, I guess I don't know if she's single or not, but she's famously unmarried and has talked and written kind of at length about being alone and the difference between being alone and being lonely, which is something that's in your essay too. And so I think that's, so this next question sort of deals with that. Just this morning I was, I was scrolling on Instagram and I saw the writer Disha Philia, who wrote Secret Lives of Church Ladies, if you don't know that extraordinary story collection. And she, I guess, was on a podcast recently, and I just heard a clip of it, but she was talking a lot about how the narrative around single women is that we're unwanted, we're undesirable, and how in a patriarchal society, the worst thing you can be as a woman is undesirable. And we know that that's like not true. And at least in my case, and I think what it sounds like in your cases, and at least this is how I read your essays, more often than not, we're single because we don't want what's being offered. Well, we want, especially like when we're a little bit older and we kind of know our worth and we kind of know what we will and won't take from folks. So I think that is really interesting, and I'm curious to kind of just know how being single has been redefined in your lives over time.
When my nephew was younger, like when he was 10, we had gone to the grocery store, and this man approached me and, spitting game, and it was terrible, and he was also just not cute, and I wasn't feeling it. And also I was with my nephew, and I just like, that's weird. Don't approach me when you see me with a child. Like, that's odd, I think. Anyway, and so my nephew, again, he was like 10, and he, like, after the dude finally left, he was like, why didn't you let him give you his number, you ain't got no boyfriend. And I was like, let's say I give you a really good meal at the bottom of a trash can. Are you gonna eat it? And he was like, no, that's nasty. I was like, okay. Like, you might be a little hungry, but right now you're not at a point where you're willing to, like, eat from the bottom of a trash can outside by the dumpster. You know what I mean? And that's how I feel about a lot of the ways that men approach me. And like, I'm just pretty much only meeting men off the apps, and they are terrible. They have no sense of conversation. They're very boring, or they just immediately jump to sex. And it's like, I'm very sex positive, but also can, like, I know your last name before you try to jack off at me, you know, through chat. That's, I don't know. But, so I have come to terms with being alone because I know that it's not because I am not a good person, that I am not a good catch. I am a good catch. I am a great girlfriend. I am like amazing. My sex is fantastic. I'm a good cook. Also, I'm a really good supporter and cheerleader. All that wonderful stuff, right? But again, you just have to be worthy of that. You are not going to get that just because you show up at my door, just because we go to dinner one time. You know, like you have to earn it. Like, be a little Shondaland with it. Earn me. You know, like that's how I feel. So I'm okay with being a single woman because I know that there is nothing wrong with me. And this one man asked me that one time. He was like, well, what's wrong with you? Because at that point I was like 32, 33. I didn't have any children. I still don't have any children. But being a woman of a certain age, being a black woman of a certain age without children, there's all kinds of red flags for people. Instead of thinking, oh, she knows how to use birth control, or oh, she's, you know, she knows what she wants in life, and maybe she doesn't want to be a single parent, or like whatever. There has to be something wrong. And there's also this idea that if you've never had an accident, that means your coochie's not good. There's a lot of like really backwards stuff that goes on in people's minds about these things. Wow. So that did used to bother me, but it does not now. Like I don't know, like 35 was a very important year for me. So once, I don't know, that little switch went off and I was just like, but I'm a good person and I just need a good person to be my person. You know, like I no longer feel bad for being single. I feel bad that men, you know, because I date men and like men don't grow up.
They stay boys.
I'm 45. I recently was kicking it with this guy who's 48, and he was still doing shit that I was experiencing when I was 23. So I was just like, no, this is awful. I don't want this. Like, why are you ghosting when you're 48 years old? That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. But like that, I'm okay with being single. I know that I am, you know, relatively cute. I'm smart. I'm ambitious. I've got all whatever I need to have to check off whoever's list. It's not me. I just feel like it's just not me.
No, that's so true. It's like that's been a big thing for me with being single is just not taking any of it personally because I have plenty of friends, for example, who are queer, who I love as people, who I'm like, I'm not in love with them. I wouldn't date them, but you know, it's like there's something different to romantic love than there is to, you know, platonic love and all those things. And there's just something else to making it work. And there's timing and there's, you know, compatibility is so many different things. And there's also just people who are fucking assholes. And it's like, you know, like there's a lot there. And there's also, I mean, there are times when I've been really lonely, especially the past couple of years. I've been working from home this whole time where I've, you know, fallen into like going on the apps and just like swiping right on things that I wouldn't have swiped right on before. And then I'm like, wait, I'm just looking for kind of like a validation here that I'm worthy, but at the same time, I also then think back to like, part of the reason why I'm single right now is because I've ended things that weren't working, and part of that is that I don't have the capacity right now. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not that I'm not lovable or not worth being in a relationship, it's that like, there are people that want me just like I would have wanted those people, like other people out there. It's just that I don't have that. I'm busy, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's like, you have to kind of think about, you know, even if you're lonely in the moment, there are people who I've been with who I would rather be alone than be with them because it was a bad relationship. It was a bad date, even if it was just one. And it's like, I don't know. Yeah. It's kind of what you were saying about it. Does this person add something to my life? And there are people that I haven't added something to their life. It's not personal. It's just not a good thing, and that's okay.
I add to everyone's life. And I feel like you both do.
That's true.
No, but that's so incredibly insightful, both of your points. And my next and maybe final question before we get to audience questions is excuse me, is about that loneliness, which you both talked about. Because one of the things that I was struck by in both of your essays again is, like, Nichole, you talked very openly about being lonely sometimes and feeling lonely. And how that's part of why you're at a point where you're like, I would like to be with someone, and it's okay to say that and name that, and it's okay to want a man and to want partnership. And I kept thinking through that in so many of my relationships, I have been in them, and I have felt just as lonely as I did as a single person. And then I read your essay, Rosemary, and I just thought, and you didn't really say this in quite the same way, but I was thinking about the marriage that you were in, great as it was, or great as Denne is, which is, by the way, one of the sexiest names in the world. Feel free to tell them I said that, yes. And I thought to be discovering yourself the way that you were in that relationship, there has to be a certain amount of loneliness that you felt while in it, even while you were figuring that out, even though eventually you came out and still got married and all of that. And so the sort of question that I was left with was, and I don't mean to take us to a sour point, but I was kind of like, well, what's the freaking point? Because sometimes being single is easier. A lot of times being single is easier. When I was like, 16, my older sister was like, everyone tells you that you need to buy a house as soon as you can buy a house, like building equity, blah, 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 blah. I don't know anything about money. But she was trying to explain this to me to help me grow up to be a responsible adult. She's 15 years older than me. And she was like, but that's not true, because there's so much responsibility and there's so much bullshit that comes along with buying a home that you're responsible for, and no one tells you about that part. And she was like, I think one should rent until they're really ready to take all of that on. Like, you don't just have to get in that rat race immediately. I'm 36 years old, I live in New York City, and I'm a writer. Naturally, I rent. But I kind of think it's the same thing about relationships, where I'm kind of like, my life a lot of the time is easier and better being single. So anyway, the point is, I'm left with wondering sometimes, what is the point? Though I do also eventually want to, I think, be with someone in a serious way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think the point is, even bad relationships, I mean, there are some relationships that are bad, and because they were traumatic and awful, and I don't wish that I had went through them. But I think I've learned, I'm single right now, so I'm not in any relationship, but I've learned something about myself through every relationship, or I'm just glad I went through them because I am friends with the person. And I mean, even in my marriage where I did feel this like loneliness, and I was repressed, and I was unhappy, and I was like chronically ill because my body was just like, I was repressing things, and I couldn't, my cells were like, I was ill. It was because of that relationship and because of the space that I have a friend who, the same way that there are wife guys, my friend calls me an ex-husband guy, because I'm like, my ex-husband is so great. Like, we're such good friends, but like, we just weren't for each other. We're just like friends now. But like, he was such a great person that he gave me the space in our relationship to figure out that I needed to be alone, which ironically made me less lonely, because it helped me figure out like who I was. I needed to go on that journey alone. I hate that I just used the word journey. I needed to do that thing alone and like be with other queer people, rather than, I mean, some people will open up their marriage, and that's great, and if that works for them, but I just couldn't do that. Because if I'm doing something with another person, I'm like, well, how was that okay for you? And then I can't process how I feel. Like, if I'm doing something with the other person, I'm like, I just need to know, I just needed to do it completely on my own. But yeah, like, being alone actually made me less lonely, but I don't know that it would have had the same impact had I not done that in the way that it happened through our relationship, And then, yeah, I mean, every relationship I've had since then, some of them have been really, really painful. But but I've learned about the kinds of boundaries that I want to set and how I want to feel in a relationship, whether it's like, you know, all the time people ask, what's your type and all these things. I don't have a type, but I have how I want to feel. I know how I want to feel when I'm with a person. I know how I want to enter the next relationship, and then the one after that, and then the one after that probably that I'm in. I think that's the point. I've learned a lot about myself, and then I say all this, and then probably the next date that I go on that's awful, I'm gonna be like, what's the point? I don't know. But
Yeah.
it's, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been single for a very long time. I've had situationships, those weird little things where it's like we do all the boyfriend girlfriend stuff, but we don't label it. And then when he leaves, he's just like, "Why did you think we were dating?" And it's like, because we went on a fucking trip together. Like, you know, like stuff like that. I hope I can curse. Sorry. But those things have. I've used those little situationships as practice and learning how to be back in a relationship, or trying to learn how to be back in a relationship, because it has been such a long time. Because again, I'm just like, I just cannot tolerate bull anymore. I cannot tolerate the BS anymore. And some of my friends are like, "You're so quick to cut people off now." And I'm like, because I already peeped what's about to happen and I don't want to do it again. And some of that might be a trauma response. I will acknowledge that. And maybe I am not giving people a full chance. But I also trust my gut, and my gut has never steered me wrong. It's just been me like trying to like ignore my gut. That's when I get into trouble, right? So so I don't know what the point is, but I do get very lonely. And it's not even like, I'm not really a hater, you know. I see couples and I'm just like, oh my God, I wish that was me. And I just, you know, like every now and then, like it'll start to like to hear the voice kind of be like, oh, but, and then just kind of back up, and I'm like, but you never know what's going on when they go home. You know, you never know what's happening. Like, you never know, you know, are they the side chicks and side guys of, you know, a situation? Like, you never know, right? So I've just really kind of like fallen back on that. Like, you never know what's going on in, you know, in these pictures that you see, in these little like cute little Instagram posts, or, you know, cuddled up in the corner kind of thing. So I just have to rely on that. Like, you never know, but you know what you want. You know what you need. That's what I rely on. But I do feel lonely a lot, and obviously the pandemic exacerbated that, because it was just like, and I recently had COVID, and I was just like, I was by myself in my apartment. It's just me and the cat, you know, and like, yes, I could get medicine and food delivered, but man, I would have loved for somebody to be rubbing my feet. You know, like, I really wish someone had been able to take the trash out for me, because that's something that I always talk about, the trash thing, because it's just like, it's just really important to me. And I'm very like, this is one of those little things that just sticks in my head, like, honey, can you take the trash out, because I don't want to touch it. Like, that sticks out to me. And it's like, when I was sick and I had to take the trash out, because I not only was I sick, I was also on my period. So it was just like, no, we got to get all of this out of the house. And I took the trash out, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to make it back upstairs. Like my, you know, the energy drain from being sick. I was like, shit. Even like taking a shower, I've been recovered for a minute. Taking a shower today to come here, this is like the first time I've been out of my house since I recovered. Taking a shower, I had to sit down in the shower, like, woof. And I'm just like, oh, I really wish that there was somebody who was here, like, in case, you know, situation goes left, I can like yell out, hey, somebody, you know, make sure you feed the cat while I'm like laid out in the tub. I don't, you know, that kind of thing. So those are moments when I feel really lonely, and it's not just oh, I see couples. It's like the practicality of coupledom. Also traveling. I have a really good girlfriend. We go traveling all the time, and it's like, oh, this is really great, but also I would like to be watching the sunset with somebody, like, you know, my head on his chest, or like whatever. Also, can I just, this has nothing to do with this, is what I'm thinking. So when my girlfriend and I go and we're traveling together, we always get our own rooms and stuff like that, but we're together. And people are trying to figure out, are you a couple? Like, what's your deal? Or, you know, like whatever. And it's, especially the staff, the wait staff, right? They're trying to figure out what's going on. And when they finally realize, or, you know, they've asked whatever their disingenuous questions to get to the situation. And when they realize that we are not a couple, that we are probably just friends, straight friends, traveling together. Oh, the liquor hand is so heavy. It is so heavy. And it's just like, wow, this homophobia is a lot. Like, you know, like they're just, you know, they're just kind of like, they're just nice. They're like really nice on the surface level when they think that we're together. But then when they realize that we're not, free food, free drinks, just all kinds of stuff. So that's really interesting. So the world is made for couples, for everything, like traveling, all kinds of stuff. And that aggravates my loneliness sometimes.
Totally.
And yeah, it's just weird. So I try, again, just to kind of like counteract the voice in my head with logic.
Well, let me just say real quick, I sit down in the shower sometimes when I'm in perfect health. Sometimes, right? Sometimes with a shower wine, because it's just that kind of day.
Yeah.
So it is all okay. That's a safe space. So I'm going to open it up to audience questions, and you raise your hand, ask a question, and then I'll repeat it because we are streaming. But yeah, who has questions? Yes.
You both have talked a lot about your trauma or like your more negative experiences in dating and relationships. Knowing that, like, what gives you hope or what makes you feel optimistic about it?
So the question is, I'm repeating this for the stream, you've both talked about sort of more negative experiences and traumas, and how has that impacted your optimism moving forward about relationships?
Okay, I would not consider myself an optimist. Like, I'm not a Pollyanna kind of person, but I have just kind of gotten to a point in my life where I'm very much like, I have gone through all this for a reason. There has to be something incredible on the other side, and the other side does not mean death, but just like,
I'll date when I'm in heaven.
right? But because like my career that I have now did not get started until I was 35, and I tried to do like the practical thing of, you know, being a teacher, English degree, therefore I'm supposed to teach. I hated teaching. That's not it. And now, you know, my spirit was just like, I'm a writer, whatever. And then finally I became a writer at a point where I was considered older, right? Like I had not followed this traditional path. And I moved to New York in 2017, January 2017. And in those 5 years, I have published 2 books, been in 3 anthologies, including this one, that you all, I hope you buy. And I have had 2 podcasts, right? And it's just like, wow, all of that's, you know, it's like everything is falling into place. So I feel like I hold on to that and think all of this, refusing to let myself be tied down to someone who does not really love me the way I should be loved, the way I know that I deserve love. Hopefully that means that he's coming. And I guess I don't know if I need to move someplace. I don't know if I need to meet, like, I don't know. And that's kind of what I've been trying to figure out, and just in my very like woo-woo way, you know, like lighting my candles and stuff. But just like, where am I supposed to be? What do I need to do? So I think sometimes people also just kind of like, you know, we joke about waiting for the guy to appear on your doorstep or waiting for the person to appear on your doorstep. And I think a lot of people just really think that they just think it's just going to be like this little thing where the other person comes to you. And sometimes you have to meet your destiny somewhere. So I had to come to New York for my career to take off in a particular kind of way. And I don't particularly care for New York, but I'm here and it's been great. And I do love Brooklyn. I love Flatbush. And that it has been rewarding. So I feel like if I can then just kind of transpose that lesson onto my love life, and I just stay patient and know, I don't know, if you hold on to something that's not right, you can't grab the thing that is right. That's how I feel, you know? So that's how I am trying to stay optimistic about it all.
That's great.
I think I'm pretty decisive about things, and like once I know that I'm done with a job or something, I'm just, you know, out of it. Or like once I feel like my gut's telling me this isn't the right relationship or something, I end the relationship, things like that. And that kind of goes along with being, you know, okay with being alone and getting comfortable with loneliness. And that sounds, I feel like something that's, I don't know if pessimism is the wrong word, but it feels like it sounds like, I think that goes along with getting comfortable with being lonely, getting decisive about things, makes room for something better because I'm not staying in things that feel like settling. Where before, I think, you know, I would have tried to make things work, whether it was after I came out and got divorced, I stayed in things that were, you know, not the right thing from like kind of a scarcity mindset because I was like, well, I have this person that, you know, likes me and I don't know how dating works in this like new context. And now I'm like, well, it's kind of the same thing. It's just finding a person that likes you and that you like them. And now I'm kind of figuring out more, okay, it's the same kind of thing. It's just, you know, different people. And it's more just about like, how do I want to feel again? And I just don't want to feel lonely when I'm next to someone because that's worse. So it's, you know, it's just kind of that balance of like how much I have to give someone else and how much I want to give up and how available I am.
Yeah. Really, really quick, I'll just say that that really resonated with me because the core of all my work with my therapist is working on a mindset of abundance versus a mindset of scarcity, which is also, I mean, everyone is saying that right now, but we've been doing it for like 2 years. So we're ahead of the curve. Okay, it's time for us to wrap up. If you all have more questions, they are going to be signing books over there. I want to thank both of you so much for contributing essays to this incredible collection, and thank you to Eliza and Haley for editing it and putting it together. And I just want to shout out a couple of the names that are in it that you can look forward to reading as well. You've got Kristen Arnett, you've got Kia Brown, Tiana Clark, Melissa Falavino, and Melissa Phoebos. You've got Minda Honey and Morgan Parker, and of course Rosemary Donahue and Nichole Perkins. Thank you both so much.
Thank you for coming out.
Amazing. Thank you again so much, everyone, for showing up tonight. And thank you again to Rosemary, Nichole, and Denne and Michele. As a reminder, Rosemary and Nichole will be signing at our back desk. So please just wait to approach the desk until they've gotten settled back there. You can purchase additional copies of Sex and the Single Woman at the signing desk. And for those of us who are still on YouTube, you can find the link to purchase books in the description. That is all from me. That is all from us. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Now please join me in giving Rosemary, Nichole, and Denne and Michele a final round of applause.